Sweet Bird of Youth, the 1962 drama that looks glamorous on the surface, but once you dig in, it gets real dark, real fast. This movie is packed with Hollywood illusions, broken dreams, and some of the most brutal truths ever put on screen in the early 1960s. Starring Paul Newman at his peak and Geraldine Page delivering an absolutely fearless performance, this film quietly slipped past a lot of audiences back then. But trust me, beneath the beautiful faces and dramatic speeches, there are secrets, risks, and behind-the-scenes stories that completely change how you see it. So sit back, because here are 20 hidden facts about Sweet Bird of Youth that Hollywood barely talked about. 1. This movie was considered too dangerous for Hollywood. When Sweet Bird of Youth was first being discussed as a film adaptation, studio executives were honestly scared of it. Not nervous, scared. The story deals with aging, sexual exploitation, corruption, and the brutal cost of fame, which were topics Hollywood preferred to dance around instead of confront head-on. In the early 1960s, movies were still carefully filtered through censorship boards, and this story pushed right up against those limits. Executives worried the film would offend audiences, spark backlash, and damage careers. Some even felt the story was morally toxic. That fear followed the production from start to finish, and it's one reason the movie feels so bold even today. 2. It started as a controversial Broadway play. Before it ever became a movie, Sweet Bird of Youth was a stage play written by Tennessee Williams, and it caused serious waves on Broadway. Critics were split. Some praised it as raw and honest. Others called it disturbing and immoral. The play openly attacked the obsession with youth and beauty, especially in show business, something Broadway audiences weren't exactly comfortable seeing reflected back at them. By the time Hollywood came knocking, the play already had a reputation as a dangerous piece of art. That reputation never went away, and the film version inherited every bit of that controversy. 3. Paul Newman fought hard to play Chance Wayne. Paul Newman didn't just casually accept the role of Chance Wayne. He wanted it badly. At the time, Newman was already a rising star, but he was trying to move away from safe, charming roles and into darker, more complex territory. Chance Wayne is a deeply flawed character, manipulative, desperate, and slowly realizing that his dreams are dying. Studios worried that playing someone this unlikable could hurt Newman's image. Newman didn't care. He believed the character was honest, and that honesty mattered more than staying pretty on screen. Looking back, this role became one of the defining performances of his career. 4. Chance Wayne was basically Hollywood's worst nightmare. Chance Wayne isn't just a character. He's a warning. He represents every young person who comes to Hollywood believing talent alone will save them. The movie strips away that fantasy piece by piece. Chance uses people, lies to himself, and clings to youth like it's oxygen. That made Hollywood uncomfortable because it felt uncomfortably close to the truth. Many insiders saw parts of themselves or people they knew in Chance. That's one reason the film never got the kind of studio celebration other movies did. It hit too close to home. 5. Geraldine Page's performance shocked everyone. Geraldine Page plays Alexandra Del Lago, an aging actress drowning in fear, pills, and alcohol. And she went all in. At a time when actresses were expected to look polished and composed, Page let herself appear messy, desperate, and emotionally raw. She didn't glamorize aging. She exposed it. Some executives worried audiences would reject her character completely. Instead, Page delivered a performance so powerful it earned her an Academy Award nomination. Today, her performance is often considered the emotional backbone of the film. 6. Alexandra Del Lago was inspired by real Hollywood legends. Tennessee Williams never officially named names, but many believe Alexandra Del Lago was inspired by real-life aging Hollywood actresses who struggled with fading fame. The fear of becoming irrelevant in an industry obsessed with youth was very real, especially for women. Page's character captures that terror perfectly. She's not just afraid of bad reviews. She's afraid of disappearing. That fear gave the character a depth that made audiences uncomfortable because it wasn't fiction. It was reality with the volume turned up. 7. The movie had to tame down the play's ending. The original stage play ends in a much darker and more brutal way. Hollywood censorship at the time wouldn't allow that ending to make it to the screen. So the film version softens certain consequences, especially regarding violence and punishment. Even with those changes, the movie still feels heavy and unsettling. But if the original ending had made it to theaters unchanged, there's a good chance the film would have been outright banned in several places. What you're seeing on screen is actually the toned-down version. 8. The censorship battles were constant. From start to finish, Sweet Bird of Youth was under a microscope. Dialogue, scenes, and even facial expressions were scrutinized. Sexual references had to be carefully phrased. Certain implications were hinted at instead of shown. The filmmakers learned to say more with silence and looks than with words. Ironically, those restrictions ended up making the movie stronger. The tension feels heavier because so much is left unsaid, which lets your imagination do the work. 9. This film quietly attacked Hollywood's youth obsession. Hollywood loves youth. Always has. Sweet Bird of Youth turns that obsession into something terrifying. Youth isn't celebrated here. It's weaponized. Characters use it, chase it, and destroy themselves trying to keep it. The film suggests that youth isn't power. It's a currency that expires fast. That idea was radical for a studio film in 1962, and it's one of the reasons the movie still feels relevant today. 10. Chance and Alexandra are using each other. At first glance, Chance Wayne looks like the predator, and Alexandra Del Lago looks like the victim. But the movie slowly flips that idea. They're both using each other. Chance wants access to fame and money. Alexandra wants validation and escape. Their relationship isn't romantic. It's transactional. That dynamic makes every interaction uncomfortable because you realize neither one is innocent and neither one is winning. 11. The Southern setting was deeply symbolic. The movie's Southern setting isn't just a backdrop. It represents stagnation, decay, and old power structures refusing to die. The heat, the slow pace, the suffocating atmosphere all mirror Chance Wayne's situation. He's stuck. He can't move forward, but he can't go back either. The setting reinforces that emotional trap in a way that feels almost claustrophobic. 12. Orson Welles almost directed the film. At one point, Orson Welles was considered as a potential director. That alone should tell you how seriously this project was taken creatively. While that version never happened, the influence of bold, character-driven storytelling remained. The final director focused heavily on performances rather than flashy visuals, which gave the actors room to breathe and hurt on screen. 13. This was one of Paul Newman's most personal roles. Paul Newman later hinted that Chance Wayne felt uncomfortably familiar. Like many young actors, Newman had experienced rejection, doubt, and the fear of becoming irrelevant. That personal connection comes through in his performance. You can feel the desperation behind Chance's confidence. It's not acting, it's recognition. 14. The movie refused to offer easy villains. Nobody in Sweet Bird of Youth is purely evil. Even the cruel characters are driven by fear, pride, or insecurity. That moral gray area confused some audiences at the time. People wanted heroes and villains. The film gave them broken humans instead. That choice made it harder to market, but it's also why the movie has aged so well. 15. The film was ahead of its time on aging and gender. The way Sweet Bird of Youth treats aging, especially for women, was way ahead of its time. Alexandra Del Lago isn't mocked. She's examined. Her fear is treated as legitimate. In an era when older actresses were often pushed aside, this film put that fear front and center and forced audiences to confront it. 16. The title is more sinister than it sounds. The phrase Sweet Bird of Youth sounds poetic, almost romantic. But in the movie, it's bitter irony. Youth doesn't sing sweetly here. It screams. It vanishes. The title itself is a trap, luring you into thinking this is a glamorous Hollywood story, only to reveal something far darker. 17. Critics didn't know what to do with it. When the movie was released, critics were divided. Some praised its honesty and performances. Others found it uncomfortable and bleak. It wasn't a feel-good film, and it didn't try to be. Over time, however, critical opinion shifted. Today, the film is often praised for its bravery and emotional depth. 18. This film helped redefine adult drama. Sweet Bird of Youth helped push Hollywood toward more adult, psychologically complex storytelling. It showed that audiences could handle uncomfortable truths if they were told honestly. Films in the late 1960s and 1970s owe a lot to movies like this that dared to go first. 19. It quietly warned future generations. For young actors, this film plays like a cautionary tale. Talent isn't enough. Looks fade. Fame lies. The industry doesn't care about your dreams. That warning is just as relevant today as it was in 1962, maybe even more so in the age of social media and instant celebrity. 20. The movie's legacy is bigger than its box office. Sweet Bird of Youth was never a massive box office smash, but its legacy grew over time. Film students study it. Actors admire it. Writers respect it. It's one of those movies that didn't shout to be heard. It waited. And now, decades later, people are finally listening. So yeah, Sweet Bird of Youth isn't an easy watch, but it's an honest one. It strips away Hollywood fantasy and leaves you staring at the cost of ambition, youth, and fame. If you've only ever heard the title and never seen the film, now you know there's a lot more hiding underneath. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit like, subscribe, and let me know which classic movie you want uncovered next. Because trust me, Hollywood has way more secrets than it ever admitted.